from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on AgDay, could a tax plan be headed for the president's desk? Plus, new research into the dangers of moving farm equipment and agribusiness, looking at the week ahead.
The interest rates change and the tax reform deal, and they're sort of related.
Machinery Pete talks about eye-popping prices for a classic machine in Iowa and teaching the next generation of researchers about the future of agriculture.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. The GOP tax bill is now headed for likely floor votes early this week, and some in agriculture say the bill looks good for the industry. The final text of the bill is due out, but tax experts at the American Farm Bureau say it looks good for producers, starting with an across-the-board cut in individual rates and relief for pass-through small businesses, which most farmers are. The Senate-passed bill called for 23% tax rate. The House used a different formula. Also in that final bill, bonus depreciation used for new equipment only. The final details of Section 179 expensing for new and used equipment were less clear so far, but as was a final deal on estate tax relief. Meanwhile, outgoing Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen says she expects a modest lift to economic growth from the tax cuts, but she does warn there is still considerable uncertainty.
The type of tax changes that are likely to be enacted would tend to provide some modest lift to GDP growth in the coming years, and you see that in part, that's one of the reasons, I think, for the uptick you see in estimated growth and decline in the unemployment rate.
Yellen says the potential for greater consumer spending and capital investments from tax cuts has been reflected in part by rising stock prices. The appointed U.S. Senator to take the place of Democrat Al Franken of Minnesota will, quote, fiercely defend ethanol. The Washington Examiner reporting Democrat Tina Smith adds another big voice of support for corn ethanol in Congress. Meanwhile, the nomination of Bill Northey to a top Department of Ag post remains on hold following a White House meeting on the renewable fuel standard. Now, that meeting, requested by Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz, offered no major breakthroughs. Cruz telling Politico he's still holding up the vote to confirm Northey, but touted, quote, progress toward a productive solution that he says would balance the needs of ethanol and oil refiners. A new study reveals how drunk driving poses additional danger to farmers as they move farm equipment down roads and state highways. Researchers looked at farm equipment accidents in 4 states, Iowa, Missouri, North Dakota, and South Dakota. The 5-year study looked at more than 60 alcohol-related crashes in those states, and in most cases, it was passenger vehicles with impaired drivers at fault. The lead investigator says the impaired drivers are slower to recognize and react to farm equipment and more likely to misjudge the differences in speed of that equipment. The study also shows the overall proportion of alcohol impairment in farm equipment-related crashes is low, but when they do, they often end in death. The research was conducted by the Great Plains Center for Agricultural Health at the University of Iowa and University of Minnesota. A jury's convicted a man of second-degree murder in the death of a farmer in a fight over dicamba drift. Alan Jones of Dunklin County, Missouri, was found guilty Thursday of the shooting death of Mike Wallace of Leachville, Arkansas. The trial was held in Arkansas. Back in October 2016, Wallace said Jones' use of dicamba had damaged some of Wallace's crops along the Missouri-Arkansas border. The two met and an argument broke out. Police say Jones pulled a gun because he felt threatened and shot Wallace. Jones faces 24 years in prison. The head of USDA says he's encouraged following a major announcement regarding the use of pesticides and new potential residue rules by members of the World Trade Organization. Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue says he's pleased 17 other WTO countries are joining together to set international residue standards for food, and he says it will enable the safe use of pesticides and developing measures grounded in science, helping to protect human and environmental health, facilitate trade, and enable producers to feed a growing global population. Farmers could start feeling the impact of China's desire for cleaner air soon. Officials recently forcing several natural gas-powered fertilizer plants to shut down to conserve the fuel for home heating in the north, where demand is outpacing supplies. That is boosting prices of nitrogen-rich urea, which is spread on fields to boost soil productivity. Natural gas use has increased after the Chinese government implemented pollution restrictions on coal-fired plants. Let's check in now with Mike Hoffman. He has today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Here's something you don't see every day: a snowless South Dakota in mid-December. Randy Hills from Summit, South Dakota, sending us this picture late last week. Randy says he's enjoying a walk with his trusty hunting dog since Mother Nature has spoiled the area with no snow. He hopes the weather will stay this way a little bit longer. And taking a look at the estimated rain from last week, you can see part of the reason there's no snow in the Dakotas. There hasn't really been a whole lot of moisture over the last week, or two for that matter. We'll talk about your forecast coming up. First, here are some hometown temps.
Farm Journal On Air is the go-to app for American agriculture. AgDay, AgriTalk, U.S. Farm Report, and more. 24/7 access to all of your favorite shows, TV and radio. In your hands, on demand. Farm Journal On Air. Download the app today.
We'll get a fresh look at markets as we begin the week before Christmas and getting non-farm kids interested in the idea of agriculture research for a career path.
AgDay, brought to you by Prosaro Fungicide from Bayer.
In agribusiness, corn touching fresh contract lows to end last week. Let's see how markets closed Friday from the floor of the CME in Chicago.
Cattle was strong. They had higher cutout prices in the middle of the day that gave the market a little bit of a boost. There was some sales as we got later towards the day that also gave it a little bit more of a shot in the arm. Feeders were also higher. The futures were really like stepping up, but the futures remain in that consolidative channel for feeders. And so we're always watching about, is feeders going to give us the tell of which way the market's going to go, or is the live cattle going to lead the way? They both were very strong today at the end of the week, seeing that we had such a disappointing week last week, and the market started off early in this week really on its lows and starting to work its way up. So it looks like we're really off the bottom for the time being in this in the beef market. Today, beans were consolidating. The non-commercial buying really stopped the slide. We had a big drop yesterday, and overall, since the report, the market's down almost 40 cents on the January contract. The market did drop below that 200-day moving average, and sometimes that will bring in a new wave of selling. That's all from the floor at the CME Group here in Chicago. I'm Virginia McGathy.
Here at the Agribusiness Desk, we have Elaine Cubb, author of Mastering the Grains. Welcome. And John Payne from Daniels Ag Marketing. Let's talk about this week ahead. What are you watching as we go into a new week? Elaine, I think you said that you're watching tax reform.
Yeah, absolutely. In this past week, those were the two big news items, is the interest rates change and the tax reform deal. And they're sort of related. As much as the Federal Reserve protests that it doesn't really care about tax policy, it does. Because when you add $1 trillion to the national deficit, that is by itself an inflationary pressure. So that deal, I can see that the markets are presently interpreting that tax reform positively, and we're seeing these record highs in the stock market all the time, and that is adding money to the trading system, absolutely. But as you add money, that by itself becomes inflationary, and we need to be watchful in the next year ahead that the Fed doesn't just raise interest rates gradually like it said, but may in fact feel pressured to dial back that inflationary pressure if the markets develop that way.
Okay, interesting. John, as you watch the week ahead, cotton last week was a big run, a big market last week. What are you watching?
Well, that'll be the big one. I mean, the outside grain markets are pretty quiet. So cotton, there are fireworks. We got a massive close on Friday. I think there may be more ahead. We're not at an inversion yet, and I think that'll be a good key to think if the top would be in. Maybe that March contract gets over July. Currently, it is not. And the second thing I'm going to watch, and I hate to say it, but I'm a futures broker in Chicago, and we're going to be launching Bitcoin contracts on Sunday. So I think there's possibility for some fireworks there. Might be a good key to watch that market as far as money flow goes. We're starting to see, as she mentioned, some inflationary things happen, cotton being one of those. Sure. I think that's something that the fundamental guys that watch this stuff, you can't quantify that. And grains could simply just rally on kind of a rising tide in the economy.
Real quick on grains, Lane, anything there that you see out in the horizon?
No, I think this is the time of the year when we need to be watchful for the funds liquidating through the end of the year. They have been net long, so the net result of that sort of trade at this time of year would be negative to grain prices.
Yeah, what about you, John?
Same deal. I like wheat. I think wheat market here at sub 450 on the Kansas City, given how dry it is in Kansas, operates, gives us some value. Longer term, I think getting yourself set up for a plan next year, this is a good time to sit down and kind of identify some targets and get those in. Don't make your decision when the market moves. Have them set ahead.
All right, thank you both for helping us get prepared for this week. We appreciate it. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a minute.
Receive a free trial of the Daily Grain Plan newsletter from Roach Ag Marketing. Text Roach to 31313. Start your subscription today by texting Roach to 31313.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman here, looking at rainfall over the past week. Not a lot on this map, Mike, but you say that could change just in time for travel this Christmas.
Yeah, the weather pattern looks like it suddenly turns colder and kind of interesting, I would say, as we head toward Christmas week. So keep that in mind with any of your travel plans. As you can see over the last week, though, we've seen very little moisture anywhere across the country. We've seen some lake effect snows in the Great Lakes. We've seen some snow and rain up the eastern seaboard. A little bit of rain shower activity in Florida, parts of the southeast and far south Texas, but the rest of the country mainly dry. And you can see the only real heavy area that I could zoom into there is kind of the mid-Atlantic between Washington and Norfolk and back to just north of Raleigh. So that was about it as the storm system kind of moved off to the northeast in that area. All right, let's take a look at things then. You can see how things have become a little more tranquil. We're not seeing that big trough in the east, so that's why it's warmed up a little bit. And as we start this week, that's going to be the case. There will be a quick shot into the Great Lakes in the northeast for a day or two in the middle of the week. And then the ridge tries to build back up again as we head into Thursday and Friday. But here's where very cold air starts to come in just before Christmas. A direct shot of Arctic air into the northern Rockies, northern plains, it looks like. And this cutoff always makes me nervous. Models have a tough time with a cutoff low like that. But that could obviously ride on up to the northeast somewhere, creating havoc with some snow as we head into Christmas. It's not showing it yet, as you can see on the model. It's cutting it off completely, but that one still makes me nervous. No doubt this is very cold air, though, for the Great Lakes from the northeast, and that will come on down into areas of the Ohio Valley and the northern and central plains as well by Christmas Day. There's the temperatures then for this week. I am going below normal for the northern tier of states, basically, far northern areas of the Great Lakes. Then you're talking about the northern half of the Rockies into Washington and Oregon. Above normal temperatures from the mid-Atlantic through Florida and south through the southern tier of states. As far as precipitation for this coming week, above normal for southeast Texas on up into the mid-Atlantic states. And it looks like also above normal for the northwestern portions of the country. Below normal, though, from Iowa, southern Minnesota, all the way back through the southwest. 30-day outlook for temperatures. I still believe the overall pattern will be a trough in the east, so below normal east of the Rockies, above normal then for much of the southwest and the west coast. Precipitation over the next 30 days above normal for the northern tier of states and the east coast, and from Missouri toward the southwest should be below normal. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Vaughn, New Mexico today, partly sunny, breezy and chilly, high temperature of 43 degrees. Ironwood, Michigan, cloudy with times of light snow, high around 30. And Panama City, Florida, mostly cloudy with a couple of showers, high of 72.
A week from today, next Monday, it's Christmas, and per our usual, we will be celebrating Christmas in the country with a special edition of Ag Day. Join Tyne Morgan and myself as we travel the countryside sharing stories about agriculture's connection to the holiday season. From colonial decorations to Christmas trees in the White House and a visit to Rudolph's cousins in North Dakota, it's a show for the entire family to enjoy. Join us Christmas morning for Christmas in the country. Well, Machinery Pete is next with a very rare tractor that grabbed a lot of attention at a recent auction. And later, these kids are learning the importance of agriculture and seeing how technology could change the industry into the future.
Ag Day, brought to you by Top Third Ag Marketing. Farmer first with a plan for every market. Machinery Pete is brought to you by John Deere. Where can you find the most comprehensive inventory of John Deere certified pre-owned tractors, combines, and sprayers? MachineFinder.com. Sometimes the best new addition to your fleet isn't new.
An auction in Iowa Friday generated a ton of interest. It involved a particularly rare IHC tractor. Machinery Pete has the final numbers.
Well, folks, we're going to call 2017 the year of the vintage four-wheel drive tractor. The capper came last Friday on an auction in Moravia, Iowa, where this International 7588 sold. Now, only a couple made. This was serial number 1. Now you probably remember the auction in August up in Manitoba, where the first serial number International 7788 and 7388 both sold. The 7788 went for just over $140,000 US. 7388 went for just over $95,000 US. Now Friday on the sale in Iowa, when the 7588 just before it sold, auctioneer Dan Sullivan with Sullivan Auctioneers got on his cell phone, called a guy by the name of John from the Quad Cities, and John bought the 7588 new back in the day. Had to sign a waiver from International because parts availability, and this was an experimental tractor. Now I watched online, and when John was telling about the tractor, the online bid went from $68,000 to $100,000. And then Dan started selling the tractor. It wound up going for $151,000 and was bought by the same gentleman from North Dakota who bought both the 7788 and the 7388. Now that is quite a trio of collectible tractors.
All right, up next, the future of farming, from technology to helping kids realize the impact that agriculture has in their daily lives.
AgDay, brought to you by Corvus, the #1 pre-emergence corn herbicide. In the Country, brought to you by Kubota's M5 series, bringing new levels of comfort to hard work. Learn more at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
Last week, Farm Journal held its inaugural Ag Tech Expo in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hundreds of people were on hand to discuss the future of technology and how it could change the way farmers do their work.
Potentially, there's work afoot to change the way the radios in your mobile phone works, so they can actually get the raw signal that GPS satellites are sending and get very accurate, sort of centimeter level accuracy GPS just on your phone.
Yeah, and so if that happens, what does it mean? Why is it better?
Well, I think what it means is it reduces the cost of all of these components, and it allows you to bring these things together to produce a sort of a cost-effective solution.
The technology that Ed Parsons often preaches about can create the buzz that gets high school students interested in science and tech for a career path. In this report provided by the Texas Farm Bureau, Ed Wolf shows us how farmers are trying to reach urban kids with the idea of agriculturally focused research.
Agriculture is a mystery for many high school students. Its deep roots in Texas lie just beyond their classroom. But a group of farmers, ranchers, scientists, and teachers are trying to change that, one lab at a time.
It's critically important that we bring young people up to understand, have an awareness of the critical role that agricultural research plays in feeding the world.
The location, Braswell High School in Denton. The event, a Borlaug Science Scholar Day. Educators from the Noble Research Institute in Ardmore, Oklahoma came to Texas to teach over 800 students about agriculture, how it touches their lives and impacts the world. Hands-on, science-based lessons help agriculture come to life for these urban youth.
I think it's educating, and it's like a fun way to learn. Who doesn't like to do labs? And it really it hits home. I really liked it, and I really enjoyed it.
Organizers are hoping students not only learn more about agriculture, but also how they can be the future of agriculture. New technologies, career opportunities, a global purpose. Agriculture has much to offer.
I want students to have the possibility of thinking about new developing careers that will come in agriculture and really open their minds to, hey, this might be a possible sector or area that I want to grow as a professional in the future.
One way they're trying to inspire is through the legacy of Norman Borlaug. Over 40 students will write a short research paper on a food security issue in hopes of attending the World Food Prize Foundation's Global Youth Institute.
The top papers that are chosen in that state will go on to Iowa to sort of talk about challenges in agriculture. They'll talk with industry experts and scientists and debate and talk about these challenges.
Students who participate could be chosen as a Borlaug Youth Scholar, getting to travel the world and see how agricultural research is helping the hungry, transforming their lives and the lives of others. The Denton County Farm Bureau spearheaded the two-day science camp, hoping it will have a lasting impact on Denton County and beyond.
We would like to expand it to more high schools in the county and see more students come through and see these technologies and all this science. And also they get some exposure to agriculture so they have a little bit better understanding about food and fiber, where it comes from.
Agriculture is fertile ground, sprouting interest and careers beyond the farm. The hope is this Borlaug Science Scholar Day plants a seed that will grow. cultivating the future. With the Texas Farm Bureau, Ed Wolf, Denton.
And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your week with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest-lasting heavy-duty pickups.